Hey guys, what's up? Spads here once again with another video for you, and today we're gonna talk about the Yamaha MT15 for short riders. So in this video, we're gonna talk about, one, is the Yamaha MT15 suitable for short riders? And then number two, if it's not suitable, how can we lower the Yamaha MT15 so that it will be easier for us to use it? And then number three, we will discuss the pros and cons if we're gonna lower the bike, what it's gonna affect on the riding and everything. And then number four, finally, I'm gonna give you the tips and tricks on how to ride the bike if you're a short rider like me. If you're into that and you want to know the answers for those questions, stick around until the end of the video. I'm gonna tell you everything that I know about the Yamaha MT15. Okay? So if you're new to the channel, subscribe, follow my social media accounts. Okay? Let's go! I know a lot of people have been asking in the Facebook groups or forums that they are planning to buy the Yamaha M15, but they are really in doubt if they can handle the bike because of their height. So we get a lot of those questions. So I hope this video will explain everything, every aspect of it, if you are a short rider and you want to own the Yamaha MT15. Okay? So this is the purpose of the video right here. Okay, so the first point that I'm gonna discuss is if you're a short rider and you want to own the Yamaha MT15, if it's suitable for you, if it's easy, if it's doable. If you're asking if it's doable, yes, it is. As long as there's a will, there's a way. There's a lot of short riders that ride tall bikes in that matter. The only problem with that is the safety of the rider. Because if the rider is not comfortable about the bike, I mean it's too high and you have doubts when riding the bike, then your safety is compromised. Biggest drawbacks of the bike is its height and the weight of the bike. Now if you're a short rider like me, I'm actually 5'4". If I'm on a, rubber shoes, if I wear slippers, I'm 5'3". So in my experience for the bike, at first it was really a problem for me. You're gonna be having problems when you maneuver the bike on the turns. If you have back rider, you're gonna be having problems with its weight. You'll have to be confident enough when you stop that your feet are, securely on the ground. You're flat-footed on the ground. So that's the main point why there's an issue with the height of the Yamaha MT15. The main point is you're compromising the stability of the bike, and at the same time you'll be prone to losing balance when you're going to abrupt stop. Because I've had a lot of experience about this with the Yamaha MT15 when the grounds are not even and I have to touch the ground so I can balance the bike and then counter the weight of the bike. Sometimes I lose my footing and then I drop the bike. So I'm gonna say to you that that's a really problem if you're a short rider. Now, it's not the end of the world. As I said, if there is a will, there's a way, and there is a way to solve that issue of the Yamaha MT15. And that is what I'm gonna discuss to you right now, the second point of the video, which is how you're gonna lower the bike so that you will be confident enough to balance and counter the weight of the bike and plant yourself securely when you're in stops or when you're maneuvering the bike in slow speed. There are actually two ways. One, which is the simplest, is to buy a lowering kit. We are actually changing the length of the bike on the back. I'm gonna show you that later. And then number two, which is what I did, is actually I changed the tire size on the back and then I lowered the front forks and the front. So let's go ahead and find a clearing spot with the shade so I can show you what tires I use on the back and then how many inches I lowered the front forks. Okay, so let's go. Okay, let me just position the bike. Okay, so I don't know if you can see. Let me go ahead and that one, the one in the C. So you can change that one to a smaller one so you can lower the bag. That alone lowers the bike to around 2 inches on the back. Then it's a rule of thumb that how many inches you're gonna lower in the back, you're also gonna have to lower in the front. Okay, so that's the first option. The second option is mine. What I did is you'll have to change the stock tire of the Yamaha M15 from the behind into a thinner one, and then you're gonna have to lower the front forks. Okay, so this is right here. This is the dimension of the tires that I use on the back. I've lowered it for around 1.5 inches or a maximum of 2 inch already. So right here, if you can see, it's 140 by 60 by 17. It's 140 by 60. Okay, so you can actually go thinner, but the only downside for that is when you are going off-road, or you know, the concretes that you're gonna go have a lot of potholes, then it's gonna compromise it, or it's gonna be a problem for your rims. So I went with 140 by 60 for these tires on the back, so that it's not really thin. If I accidentally run into potholes, my rims at the back is still gonna be safe. Okay, so 140 by 60, that's my tire. So for the front forks, okay, the stock of the Yamaha MT15, usually you're gonna consider this and this. Okay, so these are the two that clamps up the forks. The stock of the Yamaha M15 is actually positioned on top of here, the stock of the Yamaha M15. So imagine how high it is. I'm gonna show you how high it is when I first mount the bike on the dealership, and it's really tall, and I have to drop my butt just to balance the bike. Okay, so right here I actually moved it on this position, as you can see, just to check my thumb. It's actually at 1.5 inches lower on the front. Okay, and as I've said earlier, I've lowered it on the back for 1.5 inches as well. So I'm 5'4", and the stock of the Yamaha M15 are already tipping toe, and I have to drop my butt so that I can touch the ground. But with this one, I can definitely secure my footing either right or left on this one. For those riders out there that wants to own the Yamaha M15, but you know, the height is an issue, so these are the options for you if you want to lower the bike. With that out of the way, I'm gonna discuss to you the pros and cons if you're gonna lower the bike. Okay, so let's go ahead and ride. Okay, so that being said, when you are lowering the bike, there are actually pros and cons that you need to consider when you're lowering the bike. Okay, and I'm gonna give you the pros first, or the advantage if you're going to lower the bike. Okay, so one, safety. So as I mentioned earlier on my intro for this video, safety is the main concern why most riders are hesitant to buy the Yamaha M15, or actually having double thoughts if they're going to buy the Yamaha M15 or not. So when I say safety, it means that you can easily maneuver the bike. You can definitely manage the height of the bike. You can securely flat foot the bike so you can balance it. Okay, so that's one point. The other point is that the weight of the bike, if you are confident enough with your stance with driving the bike, then you can easily manage the bike. When you're securely countering the weight of the bike, when you are going in slow speeds, or just parking it, or maneuvering through traffic, if you're confident enough that you can flat foot yourself whenever there's a abrupt or sudden stop, and when you suddenly brake, then you can balance yourself. You have achieved safety of the bike. So that's why we lower it. So that's one thing. Second thing is that I know that there's an issue with back ride of the Yamaha MT15, that back rides don't like it. It's not actually out of the question that you're not gonna have a back ride. Maybe we can say that 50% there's definitely a possibility that you're gonna have a back ride. And when the bike is lower and you have confidence in maneuvering the bike, then it's easy for you to manage, back rides with a lot of weight. Because the problem when you're tiptoeing is that the whole of your foot is not really flat on the ground, so you can't really handle the weight of the bike. So added when you have a back ride with you, which adds to the weight, that's gonna be a problem. I already experienced that with the Yamaha MT15 with mine, and I have a heavier back ride on me. And you're trying to go the turn. You're trying to go the turn. It's really heavy if you slightly tip the bike like that, if you have a heavy back rider. So in traffic, if you have a back rider, then I was really scared when I was maneuvering the bikes. But if you lower the bike and you are confident that your foot is gonna stay flat on the ground safely. The other thing that I'm gonna mention is that when you lower the bike, it actually helps for the bike of being stable when you are actually riding fast. Because of the lower ride height, you are much closer to the ground. So that's one advantage if you're gonna lower the bike right there. Let's move on to the bad side or the cons when you lower the Yamaha MT15, okay? Hangin na. Yung mirror ko parang hindi tight. Oh my god. Okay. So number one that's gonna affect the motorcycle is the ride height. When they designed the Yamaha MT15, it's actually a tall bike they intended to. And the good thing about that is when you have a higher ride height, you can lean harder without having a thought of worrying that the bottom part of your bike is gonna scratch the surface when you're hard leaning. So if you're lowering the bike, you're taking out the advantage of the ride height. You won't gonna be able to lean harder anymore because the belly of the bike is now much closer to the ground because you lowered it. So that's one thing to consider if you're gonna lower the bike. The second thing is because of your lowering the bike, and if you have a back ride and you have a heavy back ride, the flay of the back springs are gonna go more lower, and you're gonna have a hard time parking the bikes or popping out the side stand of the bike, because if it's gonna go lower, the side stand of the bike, it's gonna come short. It's gonna hit the ground before you can flex it. So that's the second thing that I experience whenever I have a heavy back rider with the Yamaha MT15 lowered. Okay, the third thing that's gonna affect the bike is the geometry of the bike. When they designed the Yamaha MT15, all of the ride height from the front forks and the back springs, they already considered those. They already have calculations tested, and because you lowered it, the geometry out of the factory is not already accurate for the bike. So you're gonna have performance issues with the bike. I'm not really telling you that lowering the bike will reduce the maximum speed or the acceleration of the bike. Is not like that. Usually what you feel when the geometry of the bike is off is when you find something funny or something off with the bike. Whenever you are, you know, cornering or accelerating or just plain riding on the road, if you feel funny that something's off with the bike, that's the cause of, you know, what you did when you're lowering the bike. So those are the things to consider if you are planning to lowering the bike. We have the pros and we have the cons. So if you're still here, you know, watching my video, congratulations to you. We are at the end of my video, and this time I'm gonna teach you tips and tricks on how to ride the Yamaha MT15 if you are still eager to buy it or to own one. Okay, so basically this is just a tips so that you can avoid the things that I've done with my Yamaha MT15. Even though that I've lowered it, I have a couple of mistakes that I did from the previous that I've learned so that I won't drop the bike, or you won't have to drop the bike. Okay, so first tip, make sure that whenever you're gonna stop for something, make sure that you choose the road and where you're gonna stop, because that's gonna save you from accidentally dropping your bike. I have a lot of experiences where I just, you know, I don't consider where I'm gonna park the bike. I just park it right there, and it turns out that, you know, I'm parking on uneven roads, like it's slanting, and I'm not aware that the road is uneven, so I accidentally, you know, miss my footing when I am dismounting the bike. So I ended up, you know, out balancing myself in the bike, and then I ended up dropping the bike. So make sure that when you stop on something, make sure that the road is flat, that you consider that you can confidently flat foot the bike, so you can, you know, compensate for the weight and you can safely balance the bike. Okay, so that's the first thing that I'm gonna give you. Okay, so the second thing, I don't know if you guys are really already familiar about this. I've been doing this since I had a lot of accidents with the bike, or I had a lot of incidents that I dropped the bike. And I don't know if this is also a trend for pro or expert riders out there. When you park the bike and you're gonna turn it off, make sure that you shift the Yamaha MT15 into a gear. Okay, so why I'm saying that, why I'm telling you to shift a gear up or put it in first or second gear when you park the bike, it's because when you shift it up, it acts like a handbrake of the bike, so that you can park the bike even if it's on, you know, sloping areas, and the bike won't run. I have a lot of experiences about that, and I've dropped the bike 3 times by not, you know, handbraking the bike or just shifting one gear when I turn off the bike. You know, it secures the bike for its place, that it won't slide when you let it go. So that's number 2 tip that I'm gonna give you if you're a short rider when you're doing the Yamaha MT15. Oh my god. Woohoo! Number 3 tip that I'm gonna give you, this is actually for back riders. If you're always having a back ride with you, this is the tip that I'm gonna give you. Always ask for your back ride to wait for your signal if you're ready for him to mount and dismount the bike. The reason behind that is you'll have to secure the bike that it's balanced before your back ride mounts the bike or dismounts, so that you can counter the weight of the bike with the back ride mounting or dismounting. so that you can avoid dropping the bike, avoid yourself in the back ride it, drop together with the bike. So the third tip is for back riders for the Yamaha MT15. Okay, and for the fourth tip that I'm gonna give you, which is the last tip, make sure that when you brake, before you put your leg down, make sure that you stop the bike first. I know that's really a simple tip that mostly of the advanced riders usually do. This tip is actually intended for new riders of the Yamaha MT15. If this is your beginner bike, that's my tip for you. Make sure that when you brake and before you put your foot down to balance the bike, make sure that the bike is fully stopped. Because if the bike is not stopped yet and you'll have to put down your feet, there's a chance that the bike is gonna drag you, and when that happens, you're gonna outbalance yourself and you're gonna crash. So that's why I'm giving that tip. I know it's a very simple tip, but usually most of the riders forget it. They are excited or they panic when, you know, in traffic or in near crashes where you're gonna have to emergency brake, and before the bike fully stops, you put your feet down and then you get dragged by the bike, then you crash. So make sure that you consider that. So those are the tips that I have for you guys. So I hope by now, if you're still in doubt of buying the Yamaha MT15, I hope I answered some of your questions, or I hope I erased some of your doubts. And I hope that you buy the Yamaha MT15 because this is a very amazing machine, and it's gonna be a head turner for you, and it's gonna be a great experience for you. This bike is really fun to ride. And in my next video, I'm gonna tell you how fun to ride the Yamaha MT15 and the things that I love about it, okay? If you're still here, you know, watching the video up until the end of it, thank you so much. I hope you learned something for a thing or two, okay? If you're not yet subscribed, subscribe to my channel and then follow my social media accounts, okay? Till next time, ride safe, and I will see you on the next video, okay? Bye.